So we've talked about deforestation. Now let's look at reforestation. China is the country with the strongest comeback in terms of replanting its forests. It's been turning dead zones of the country that were causing erosion, poverty, and no habitat into lush forests that can provide goods for the people as well as habitat for wildlife. About 28 million hectares or 69 million acres have been planted so far, which is roughly the size of New York and Pennsylvania. This originated as a way to combat erosion problems and flooding issues that they were having in China. 26 out of China's 31 provinces are participating in a program known as Grain for Green program, and they're utilizing money to basically convert lands that have been farming back into forests. At the bottom of the screen are two links for videos pertaining to China's reforestation projects. What I've done is I've included these links as separate links in the short video lecture folder for this week's lesson. So please be sure to click those links and watch those videos. This is a map that is proposed for areas to be conserved to promote healthy ecological ecosystems in China. Notice that the dark green areas are maximum protection and development is completely forbidden. And then the medium green areas are for satisfactory protection. Much of this green area here, as well as stemming up through China, is known as the Green Wall of China, which they've planted forests in order to stop the encroachment of the desert from the western portion of China. So some pros to these reforestation projects. Well, obviously they help control erosion by replanting the land. There's carbon absorption that's going on, and it's helping to decrease poverty in the region, providing jobs for people to do the work. A con associated with these reforestation projects is that they're only planting a limited number of tree species, so you have essentially a monocultured forest. This creates an overall unhealthy ecosystem and it lacks biodiversity. China has seen over 3,600 square kilometers of grassland overtaken every year by the Gobi Desert. Dust storms blow off the topsoil, and these storms are increasing in severity each year. So what did China do? They decided to plant the Great Green Wall of China. China has the largest artificial forest in the world as a result of this, over 500,000 square kilometers. There's about $14 billion that's been spent on reforestation efforts in China, part of the Grain for Green program, and the Loess Plateau is part of this. Make sure you watch the videos that I've provided under the short video lecture folder because it talks about the Loess Plateau and gives you a good visual depiction of what it used to look like and what it looks like now. So they've been planting the Great Green Wall of China since 1978. It's over 2,800 miles long, and in some areas it's about 200 feet wide. And remember, the goal for planting this is to be a windbreaking strip to stop the advancement of the Gobi Desert. So let's shift gears into aquatic biodiversity and how human activities are impacting it. Coastal habitats are disappearing 2 to 10 times faster than those being lost from tropical rainforests. Some things that we do in the ocean, such as bottom trawling, may be the largest human-caused disturbance in the environment as a whole. Coral reefs absorb heat from the warming atmosphere and are subject to pollution and are susceptible to ocean acidification. So it's key that we identify marine protected sanctuaries, manage coastal development, and reduce water pollution as well as overfishing. Let's take a look at some facts regarding overfishing. So overfishing is defined as removing marine wildlife from their habitat at rates at which the populations cannot recover quickly enough. A fishery is defined as the concentration of a particular wild aquatic species suitable for commercial harvesting in a given ocean area or inland body of water. Another term you should be familiar with is the fish print. The fish print is defined as the area of ocean needed to sustain the consumption of an average person, a nation, or the world. About 52% of the world's fisheries are fully exploited. 20% are moderately overexploited, and 20% 28% are overexploited or depleted. Overharvesting of fish has led to the collapse of some of the world's major fisheries. When overharvesting causes larger predatory species to dwindle, rapidly reproducing invasive species can more easily take over and disrupt the ocean food webs. Take too many fish, no more fish. So looking at this graphic, it's showing you that one fish represents 100,000 eggs. So this is for the red snapper. The red snapper can live for 54 years, but today there are too few that are older than 10. Older fish are the best spawners, and since the 1960s, the average weight, age, size, and reproductive capacity of the red snapper has diminished. So back in 1962, a fishery for the red snapper looked more like this in terms of reproductive capability. So remember, each one of these fish represents 100,000 eggs. So the fish would grow to be about 21 pounds in weight, typically around 11 years, and about 33 inches in length. In 1985, an assessment of the red snapper fishery resulted in this, where you have fewer eggs and the fish is actually smaller. It's more than half the weight of what it used to be back in 1962, and it's only 4 years old. So basically we have overfished and removed the older fish out of the fishery, and we're seeing a population collapse result from it. Currently, the red snapper industry looks like 100,000 eggs being laid by a fish that's about 2 years old but much smaller in size. And by the way, this represents 3,400,000 eggs being laid by one fish. This is indicating about 700,000 eggs, and this is indicating 150,000 eggs. So by overfishing, we're definitely impacting the fish spawning and reproductive capability of different species of fish in the ocean. Other ways that humans can impact aquatic species is by habitat destruction. From a freshwater standpoint, building dams has a huge impact on freshwater aquatic zones. They create large reservoirs and they impact how the fish can migrate up and down the river. Too much water being withdrawn from an area can also impact the amount of water available to the aquatic species and can decrease the habitat, as a result have a rippling effect to decreasing population of aquatic species. In the ocean, we deal with coral bleaching as well as dredging, and the picture in the bottom right corner shows what the ocean floor looks like after it's been dredged. It's almost like clear cutting the ocean floor. There's different methods of harvesting fish depicted on the screen in front of you. Many commercial fishing methods can be used to harvest various marine species. Industrial fleets definitely dominate the world's marine fishing industry, and they can actually use global satellite positioning equipment, sonar fish finding devices, and huge nets and long fishing lines, and even spotter planes to help them find the fish. Trawler fishing is used to catch fish and shellfish by dragging a funnel-shaped net held open at the neck along the bottom of the ocean. That's trawler fishing. Purse seine fishing is used to catch surface-dwelling fish by using a spotter plane to locate a school, and then the fishing vessel encloses it with a large net called a purse seine or seine. Long line involves lines up to 80 miles in length, as depicted here, hung with thousands of baited hooks to catch open ocean fish species or bottom species. And then you have the drift net approach, which catches fish with huge drift nets that can hang as deep as 50 feet below the surface and extend for about 40 miles long. Drift nets are known to trap and kill large quantities of unwanted fish called bycatch, along with other marine mammals, sea turtles, and seabirds. So out of all these techniques, these drift nets that can spread out 50 feet below the surface and extend for 40 miles are the ones that do have one of the greatest impacts on the environment. Almost 1/3 of the world's annual fish catch by weight consists of bycatch species. these bycatch species are mostly thrown overboard, dead or dying, and are not harvested. The definition of fish print is on your screen in front of you. It's the area of the ocean needed to sustain the fish consumption of an average person, the nation, or the world. Fisheries are concentrations of a particular wild aquatic species suitable for commercial harvesting in a given ocean area or an inland body of water. So, overfishing has actually led to the collapse of some of the world's major fisheries. And one of the other issues we're having is that there's invasive species taking over and disrupting the ocean food webs when the predator species dwindle. This map is depicting countries ranked based on how much they overfish. So, the ones that are overfishing the most are in black, and then the ones that are not overfishing as much are down here in the lighter color. So, Australia, Canada, parts of Africa, the Mediterranean, and South America are considered the worst in terms of overfishing. So this graphic is looking at whether or not fish are being farmed or if you're getting them from the wild. So, if it's listed as a yes, it means that the fish is abundant and well managed and can be caught in an environmental friendly way. Maybe indicates the fish are flagged for concern and may be trawler caught. And no indicates that the fish are vulnerable or an endangered species and can be caught or farmed in harmful ways. So, which fish are okay to eat? When we look at this, if we're ordering fish for food, it's best to stay away from the ones that are in this category because these fish are definitely considered vulnerable. So, this graphic depicts the major ecological and economic services provided by our aquatic environments. Obviously, our aquatic environments provide food, animal and pet feed, pharmaceuticals, coastal habitats for humans, harbor and transportation routes, and the list goes on. In terms of their ecological services, nutrient cycling, carbon dioxide absorption is a big deal, waste treatment, and reducing storm impact to the coastlines. So can we actually protect and help sustain marine biodiversity? Yes, but it's going to be difficult. Part of the reason it's difficult is that fish prints and eco-footprints are expanding exponentially. In addition, ocean damage is not highly visible to humans, therefore out of sight, out of mind. People also incorrectly view the ocean as an inexhaustible resource, and that's just not the case. The other part is that most of the world's oceans lie outside the legal jurisdiction of any country, which leads to overexploitation and a classic example of the tragedy of the commons. It's tough to regulate what you can and can't do in international waters. The good news is that establishing protected marine areas and marine sanctuaries actually does result in an increase in the population and size of fish. This can actually occur within 2 to 4 years of setting up a marine protected area. As far as managing fisheries, some ideas are to implement fish regulations where we set catch limits well below the sustainable yield, and we improve monitoring and enforcement regulations associated with this. Also setting up protected areas, and then do consumer information education where we label sustainably harvested fish and publicize overfished and threatened species. On the right side, it's looking at specific categories such as bycatch, using wide mesh nets to allow escape of smaller fish and setting up escape devices for sea turtles. Ban the throwing of edible bycatch back into the sea. Aquaculture is definitely growing, and farm-raised fish is something that's going to continue to happen, but also working on stopping non-native invasions to help decrease their stress on the native species in the aquatic environment.